Hi, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking all about the brand new Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette. And here she is. This is the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette. It is an 18 pan eyeshadow palette that retails for $67. And of course, in true Huda fashion, it does include a few new eyeshadow formulas. So you'll see some of the marbled shades here, and then this gloss shade right here. A couple of interesting things I think about these new formulas is that they're all very different and they're all going to be very different in every single palette. For example, this gloss shade has little reflective pearls in a gloss base. They're probably not going to count the individual number of little reflective pearls in every palette. Plus, with the way that they would kind of dissolve in that gloss and the way that you use them, that will be different in every single palette. Same thing with the marbled shades. They are poured differently in every palette, so you will get a different ratio or a different swirl in every single palette. Plus, as you use them, the shades might shift just a little bit. If you have, a lot of gold on top and a lot of, say, burgundy on the bottom, as you use that ratio of gold to burgundy may shift a little bit from the top of the pan to the bottom. I also think it's really interesting that two of these marbled shades are metallic, but this one is actually a marbled matte. And you don't really come across a lot of marbled matte formulas, so I think that's a really interesting inclusion in this palette. When it comes to the color story of this palette, I think Huda did a really great job of keeping lots of different skin tones in mind. One of the things I always talk about is having a one and done palette. If you're spending $67+ on a palette, you want to make sure that you can create a lot of looks and you don't need to bring a lot of things in from elsewhere. Of course, there are going to be times where you will want to bring in a blue or a green or something softer or something darker. So I don't think every palette needs to be exactly the same with one of every shade in it. But what I'm talking about is being able to create a day look, a night look, an office look, a girls' night look, everything all in one palette, so that if you are going to go on vacation or you don't have a lot of space for your makeup collection, you want to be able to have a great quality palette with great quality shadows that has enough variety to really get you by with a lot of different looks. And I think they did a really great job with this palette by including a couple of smoky shades, a couple of lighter shades, the metallic shades. Even within the metallic shades, you have the lighter and the darker tones. So it's really covering the spectrum when you think about who can use this palette. A lot of different people are going to be able to make a lot of really great looks with this one palette. Even though this is a very particular color story, it does have a lot more of the browns and the golds and the burgundies, but you have these splashes of lighter shades, you have the splashes of cooler shades with kind of these two, you have the more burgundy, but especially regarding these three matte shades, they really kept different skin tones in mind. They didn't just include one shade like this, say it's a transition shade and call it good. They included a couple deeper, a little bit more of that orangey, darker tone. So like I said, even though this is a very particular color palette, it really is expansive when it comes to the shade range, the number of skin tones that it will look great on, as well as the number of looks that you can create with one palette. When it comes to the eyeshadow formulas themselves, Huda's mattes are great. They do tend to skip a little bit on me, especially the darker shades. But if there's one thing Huda does really well, that she really knows what she's doing, it's her metallics. These metallic shades are so buttery and gorgeous. They go on so smooth. They layer well, even metallic on metallic or metallic on sparkle or sparkle on metallic. For example, in today's look, I did layer 3 different sparkle shades on different parts of my lid. These two are my favorite, Shameless and Flower Power. So I did a little bit lighter swatches, but I just want to show how well they kind of sheer out. You can almost wear them as toppers too. So if you want something softer for every day or a little bit lighter, you can just add a little bit of shimmer without adding a ton of color. And I think it's really pretty. So if you do use any of these Huda shades and you swatch them or you put them on and you're like, oh man, it's really sheer, I didn't want it to be that sheer, all you have to do is just build it up a little bit. You just might not have picked up enough at once. I really struggle with eyeshadow palettes that include toppers because it's just not something that you use very often. You don't need a lot of them in quantity or variety, but I really love a great eyeshadow that can really be used either very, very softly as a topper or built up into a more saturated color that really gives you that wow factor. Let's go ahead and move on to some swatches. Since this is an 18 pan palette, I am not going to swatch all 18 shades on my arm at once. I'm going to swatch them by row, just so you can get a really good idea of what each of these shades actually looks like. I'm afraid if I do them all at once on my arm, they'll just be too tiny. The shades in the top row from left to right are Filthy, Passion, Shameless, Please Me, Hypnotic, and Hard. The shades in the second row from left to right are Untamed, Irresistible, Flower Power, Rough, Spicy, and Arouse. The shades in the bottom row from left to right are Slippery, Tantric, Naughty, Provocative, Desire, and Juicy. For my look today, I used the shade Hypnotic in my crease as a transition shade. Then I used the shade Filthy, also in my crease, bringing it almost up to my brow bone. Then I added the shade Rough in the outer corner for a little bit of depth. Next, I smoked out my crease, especially in the outer corner, with the shade Untamed. I tapped the shade Shameless all over the inner half of my lid, followed by the shade Irresistible on the outer half of my lid, and just a touch of Flower Power on the inner corner. Last but not least, I went back in with the shade Untamed and blended out my outer corner just a touch. Here are the shades in the top row of the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette. This shade is one of the marbled metallic shades, and this shade is the marbled matte. And I just wanted to point out that marbled matte shade because in the palette, it is marbled and it is kind of a brown gold looking swirl, but both shades are matte and it does swatch as a true matte brown. So really, they could have just put it in as that exact shade of matte brown in the palette, but it does make for a more visually spectacular palette with the marbled matte formula. Again, same with this marbled metallic shade. It could have been in the palette just as this shade, but then it wouldn't look as cool. And I just love how shiny these two metallic shades are. This pink especially is really gorgeous. I also like the addition of this kind of pastel lavender pink. It really adds another layer to this palette. You have so many of the darker browns and the burgundies and kind of those more naughty tones, but I like having these lighter mattes that you can really diversify the looks that you create with this palette. I will say from this top row, Filthy and Shameless are definitely my two favorites. These are the shades in the second row of the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette. Again, we have this gorgeous shimmer. This gorgeous shimmer is not showing up on film like it is in person. In person, this is one of my favorite shades in the palette. I'm wearing it in my inner corner today. In person, it actually reflects a lot more different colors instead of this kind of light gold reflect that we have going on here. And then of course, the 4 matte shades. And I will warn you with this matte formula, they do go on quite pigmented, but you really have to be careful to not apply too much color before you start to blend it out or it will skip. This burgundy shade skipped very badly on me today. I do have very, very textured eyelids, and shadows can tend to skip on me a little bit, especially darker matte shadows, but this burgundy did skip very badly. I did my best to buff and blend it out. I did not have as bad of an issue with the skipping with the 2 lighter shades, but really be careful with the application of these mattes as they will skip. As you can tell by my choice of look, lipstick, and shirt, I really love these darker burgundy shades for fall and winter. I think they're really pretty. I think it's a great way to mix things up without using just straight up browns and blacks. I really love that brands are bringing in more of kind of the mauves and the burgundies and the mulberries. They're really gorgeous. And here are the 6 shades in the bottom row of the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette. If you are anything like me, I am sure you are wondering what that clear, glossy, pearl shadow looked like, and this is it. And honestly, I have swatched this shade probably 4 to 5 times trying to get it to show any color at all, and this is the first time I've gotten any color payoff out of that pearl gloss swirly mix. So you can see it almost looks like a lip gloss, like it's very sheer. Now that it's starting to swirl a little bit, it does have a little bit more pigment to it. This is what it is currently looking like in the pan. Mine, for some reason, seem to all be around the edges instead of in the middle. I think if you got a palette with more of the pearls in the middle, you would probably get a better result than I'm getting with mine. And this kind of burgundy gold one is another one of those marbled metal shadows. This one I think is really, really pretty. And of course, you know I love the shine that's going on with this one. I think out of all of the rows, this row truly shows the full color story of this palette and really kind of sets the vibe for this palette. It has the sparkle, it has the shimmer, it has the deeper colors, it has the berry burgundy tones, and the juxtaposition between the gold and the burgundies giving kind of that luxe, very naughty feel. One thing I will say about this palette being the naughty palette, first of all, the fact that it is the naughty palette just makes me giggle. It's just a funny word, but the shade names get me every time. There is no way I could talk about this palette with a straight face using all the shade names. My overall thoughts on this Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette: I definitely see how it is a good follow-up to the original New Nude palette. This is a lot more kind of light and pastel. This is a lot more dark and steamy. They both have a great balance of matte to shimmer shades, but I can definitely see how this one became the naughty version of this one. And when it comes to brands doing a follow-up palette like the Naughty Nude being a follow-up to the New Nude palette, I think it's really fun to see the progression that a brand takes throughout the years. For example, this one has the cardboard packaging that just folds shut, and this one is in the new plastic packaging that snaps. And of course, this one had the first iteration of the metallic kind of marbly type shadows, and this one has the new version. They both have incredible payoff. They're both wonderful. All in all, I think Huda did a great job with this new palette. Again, I love that it really has a lot of range when it comes to shades, especially the more matte transition shades. I think you can get a lot of use and a lot of looks out of this one. I do think we could do without this pearl gloss shade. I don't know when I would ever use that. I think eventually it will get a lot of like shadow dust fallout from the other shades and kind of get in that gloss. It needs, like the Natasha Denona palettes have the little clear cover that flips down. I think this needs something like that to protect it, or just swap it out for something else. I love this color story for a fall, winter, holiday palette. I think having a naughty palette for holiday is kind of fun with just a play on naughty and nice. I like the cohesive color story with this. And just the shades and tones themselves are really great for kind of this fall winter season. Of course, I am not here to tell you what to buy. I am here to share swatches, my opinions, and help you run the numbers. The rest is up to you. Huda products are great quality, but they are a little bit expensive. So of course, it all goes into what is important to you and your budget and your sense of style. And now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this palette, if there are any other holiday launches that you're super excited about, as well as what's on your wish list this Christmas. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I launch a new video, and I'll see you next time.